We are diving into something today that is, honestly, an absolute game changer from our source material. Imagine building a production-style REST API using a state-of-the-art open-source AI model and running the whole thing on completely free hardware. Seriously, no subscriptions, no renting incredibly expensive GPUs. You just need a browser tab, and in about 15 minutes, you'll have a fully functional infrastructure setup ready to go.
So I want to just throw this question out there right off the bat. What if your AI API cost exactly $0? You know, developers out there are constantly battling the friction of super expensive commercial APIs, totally unpredictable rate limits, and these really restrictive subscription tiers that just eat straight into project budgets and kind of stifle creativity.
But yes, we are talking about exactly $0. Literally not a single cent. This is about the absolute freedom of taking complete 100% control over a world-class AI model without paying a dime in API costs. It completely flips the script on how developers can actually integrate AI into their work.
All right, let's get right into Section 1, the illusion of control. Look, a lot of tutorials out there just show you how to use an AI, but there is a massive, massive difference between just using an AI model and actually running it yourself. When you run it, you own it, you control it. A lot of the time, developers will turn to Hugging Face spaces, which are basically hosted demo apps running on shared CPU hardware. And honestly, it's slow. Sometimes it takes over a minute just to get one output. There's zero guaranteed uptime, and if the space goes to sleep, well, your app breaks. You literally cannot rely on it as an API. Now contrast that with running it yourself on Google Colab. That gives you a dedicated NVIDIA T4 GPU, complete control, and it is entirely API ready from the jump. This is that crucial shift from being just a consumer to being an owner.
Now, to actually build this, we still need a model, right? And that is where Hugging Face comes in. People often call it the GitHub of AI. It's a platform hosting somewhere around 3 million models. We're talking everything from image generators to speech recognition. The best part is most of them are totally free to download, and this is exactly where our little liberation arc begins.
Moving on to Section 2, the zero-cost tech stack.
To bypass all those corporate limitations, the source material reveals this brilliantly simple architectural blueprint. It basically stitches together 4 incredibly powerful, entirely free tools. First, for the model itself, we're using Stable Diffusion XL Base 1.0. Next, the environment is Google Colab. Then, to create a secure public tunnel, we use Ngrok. And finally, to serve the actual API, we use the web framework FastAPI. When you see all these pieces connected together like a giant puzzle, it's a total game changer.
And the absolute linchpin of this entire stack, the thing that makes it all work, is this one detail. Google Colab provides access to an NVIDIA T4 GPU packed with 15 gigabytes of VRAM. And there is absolutely no credit card required. The sheer amount of hardware power they give you entirely for free is just staggering. It's what takes this from being some neat theoretical exercise into a highly practical, production-ready environment. Which brings us to Section 3, firing up the engine. The actual mechanics of getting this thing running are remarkably brisk. We're talking just 4 high-level steps here. First, input your Hugging Face token into the notebook secrets. That's going to give you much faster downloads. Second, drop in your Ngrok authentication token to prep that secure tunnel. Third, and actually, this is absolutely crucial, make sure the Colab runtime is actively set to that T4 GPU instead of the default CPU. And finally, just hit run all. You are essentially spinning up a powerful server with a few clicks.
And what happens next is pretty incredible. You start pulling down a massive 7.11 gigabyte model directly into that free hardware. Because you authenticated with Hugging Face, this gigantic download just flies at lightning speed over Google's servers. It's this massive heavy lift happening entirely behind the scenes, getting you ready for action in just moments.
Let's geek out for just a quick second on the specific powerhouse model we are utilizing here. Stable Diffusion XL Base 1.0 boasts an insane 3.5 billion parameters. It generates high-res 24 by 24 images using a dual text encoder architecture. But the most important part? Its size means it fits absolutely perfectly within our 15 gigabytes of free T4 VRAM. It completely nails that sweet spot between high-end quality and pure accessibility.
So, once it's all loaded up, the model is successfully running inference and is accessible via a public Gradio URL. You can just type in a prompt and generate incredible images right there for free.
But let's pivot for a second, because as great as a nice user interface is, an interface doesn't really help you build an application. Developers need endpoints, right? They need something their systems can actually talk to programmatically.
Okay, let's jump to section 4, the REST API revolution. This is exactly how an isolated little notebook transforms into a globally accessible developer tool. The real magic happens when Ngrok creates a secure tunnel directly from that Google Colab virtual machine straight to a public URL. Suddenly, your model running on Google's GPU becomes a completely legitimate endpoint. You can call it from anywhere on Earth with a single post request. It completely bridges the gap between a local experiment and a live service.
And when you actually test this out, you'll see just how streamlined the response really is. You send your text prompt, and the payload that comes back is a base64 encoded string. The image literally comes back as raw text data. This is huge, because it means you can just take that string, wrap it directly into a standard React image tag, and boom, the generated image renders instantly in your app. It's so incredibly elegant.
Think about the ultimate empowerment this gives you as a developer. You can integrate state-of-the-art AI right into your project with maybe 10 lines of front-end code. And because it is your infrastructure, there are no API keys to rotate, absolutely zero corporate usage limits, and zero cost per image. You completely shatter the standard bottlenecks that usually hold projects back.
Oh, and you aren't just limited to image generation either. This exact same FastAPI and Ngrok pattern works for virtually any of the 3 million models on Hugging Face, whether you need text generation, speech synthesis, optical character recognition, translation, you name it. Just load the model, wrap it in FastAPI, expose it through Ngrok, and call it. The underlying code barely even changes. The flexibility here is essentially limitless. So, to rapidly summarize the absolute feat we just pulled off with this architecture, we took a massive 3.5 billion parameter AI model. We loaded it onto a dedicated, fully free NVIDIA GPU. We mapped it to a public URL, and we exposed the whole thing as a production-style REST API. And we did all of this for exactly $0. You now have the exact blueprints, and you understand exactly how these powerful free tools connect. So I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Take this framework and get it running for yourself. But once you do, don't just stop there. With 3 million models sitting right at your fingertips, what model will you swap in next? Get out there, start building, and create your own zero-cost API today.